Hey everybody, and welcome to Builder Series. Really excited about this one as always. Joining me today is Lasha Antadze, a co-founder of Rarify Labs, a server provider dedicated to advancing Rarimo, an interoperability protocol enabling cross-chain interaction and integration of identity and social aspects across multiple chains. I want to point out, recently, Rarimo announced their integration with Circle's cross-chain transfer protocol, where now in a single click, users can now purchase NFTs with USDC held on any chain. Before we dive into it, please welcome Lasha. Lasha, how you doing today, my friend?
Hi Sam, great to see you and thanks for having me. And happy to talk about our integration with CCTP and how we're leveraging this technology across the different verticals and use cases.
Nice. Well, look, I always want to start off. It's the backstory. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into Web3.
I personally and most of my team members, we started like professionally the Web3 space. Back then it was called just the Bitcoin blockchain stuff in 2014. So I guess like we went through not only bear and bull markets, but we went into like renaming this industry and advancing from like the Bitcoin to like sidechain the world to I know now NFTs and then like now Web3 that should I guess like categorize everything in one single bucket and really shows I guess the main value, right? The ownership built around and in different verticals and different forms now extending across the industry. So here we are in Back3 for 10 years.
Yeah, you're old school like me. I was here pre. I guess that's how we should do it now. Like, have you been here pre Web3 days or are
Yeah.
you post Web3?
Are you? Yeah. But no, actually, like back then, it was called like distributed ledger technology. So you were building something with on a distributed ledger technology was the if you were not doing something with Bitcoin wise, you were in a DLT stuff.
That's right.
Yeah.
Man, you're bringing flashbacks. You're bringing flashbacks. Okay, so you way back then. So okay, let's go from there.
Yeah. And I was, we, as a team, actually, like the good part is that we maintain not only friendship, but this kind of eagerness to build together. So, but we've been always like infrastructure lovers and building the kind of deep tech at the protocol level type of solutions. So, I started off in a decentralized commerce. It was pre NFT decentralized commerce, which was a bit like, wow, why? But yeah, it was different times. It was more like, how could we put the real world assets into a blockchain stuff? And actually, we built successfully because I've exited the company and the team has exited the previous solution. It was used for cross-border auctions and stuff. And then it was right the moment when the NFT craze was starting, and we realized that we wanted to go back into the basics of this ownership and this. What excited me personally was that I realized that all the NFT stuff and the interactions that were a bit different from a transactional and financial instruments. It was natively something new, and it kind of gave glimpse into this decentralized social world. So I personally considered and straight away got the understanding that NFTs was something that has to do with an identity on our existence within the digital world, and it had a much wider utility and notion than just collectibles or like art or just like, I don't know, a bunch of the digital assets that people should store and for hundreds of years. So it would have something quite fluid and the different use case. And so decentralized social, what is what brought us in back, and we decided to contribute, especially on the infrastructure level. And we believe that going forward, that's the next big wave coming. So hope that it's going to arrive sooner than anyone can imagine.
No, I think that's huge, and shout out to your team for catching on to that. I remember when NFTs became the craze, it was a bit frustrating for a lot of us, I guess purists, that it was just focused on on the art, which is really cool, by the way. Nothing against the art, but there were so many different great use cases, and identity, as you mentioned, is a strong one.
Yeah, definitely. And if you look back, even from what blockchains and crypto overall served, it was natively a pretty social infrastructure, right? So all the transactions, the wallets, the wealth accumulated across this anonymous stuff. If you kind of drill down philosophically, these are all the social signals, right? Externally used to build your community, to transact and say like, whoever you are. Remember, like there were conferences and still are where you have like special whale pass and stuff, and like people pay a lot of money for it. So in a way, this overall building your social identity in a crypto, that was something that was present from day one. And then these NFTs, SBTs, like sovereign identity standards, and all these attributes in this or that form are now enriching kind of the profiles of the users. And so it's not something that popped up in day one. I think it always was there, but from a financial type of social signal, it's now advancing into a more complex interactions, or the kind of social capital formation in a way.
Yes, yeah, it makes sense. So tell me about your introduction and how you got connected with Circle. Because that's how I met you, was actually from internal relationships. So tell us about that, how that came together.
I guess it has a long story. So it was basically, as we were looking into first, like the interoperability aspect, and especially like the transactional level. So I think like it's super important. It was super important for us that, yes, we believe in a multi-chain world. We believe in the kind of users being able to transact in whatever currency they want. And in a way, at a certain point, we realized that you might be a cross-chain solution and you want to like focus on a particular aspect of like identities in our case, right? But you don't have to build out the entire infrastructure on your own. So you don't have to like even bear the risks of liquidity management, which is quite risky and compromised space, right? We've seen a lot of bridges hacked and a lot of like pools wrecked and many user lives ruined, right? So in a way, it's a challenge. So I mean, like when you're building within the Web3 space, sometimes you need a focus and you have like X amount of resources that you can direct towards upbuilding or this certain kind of resources around the security. And when you're trying to pool every aspect of like cross-chain liquidity management and then some additional interactions on your, the risks are higher, I would say. And plus the resources required are 10 times more. And I think like, coming to Circle and understanding the CCTP and like the ability to securely use that technology and abstract away the risks of the pool liquidity management was something we wanted to get our hands on from day one. And that's how the CCTP partnership started. But apart from that, we're like very close friends. The Circle itself has contributed the certain funds to our early growth. So thanks for all the way support we're getting, both technically, ideologically, and financial wise.
Yeah, shout out to the Circle Ventures team. Yeah, they've definitely made a really great footprint throughout the entire ecosystem. So let's talk about it. So cross-chain transfer protocol comes out. You immediately see the wide range of use cases. So I know that you have a product called the NFT checkout solution. Let's talk about that. And then I want to go deeper into your identity project that you're working on. So let's start off with the NFT checkout.
Yeah, so it was one of the first proof of concepts, I would call, that became to be a working product. But the idea was that, NFTs as a digital assets, they exist and are bound to an ecosystem where they're minted, right? So if an NFT was created on Polygon or like any other chain, it's just bound to that ecosystem. And technically, if there is an exchange, if there is like a transfer, so the aspect of paying gas fees or transacting with an owner, it's always in a native chain. So Polygon, you need to use Matic. Ethereum, you need to use ETH, and that's kind of like object-locked transaction, if that makes sense, this type of term. So we thought, like, what if you could detach these social objects, the NFTs, like we mentioned, from the transactional aspect, and especially in a multi-chain paradigm, allow anyone to use whatever token they want from whatever ecosystem, but being able to frictionlessly move and move these NFT objects as a completely different asset class, not bound to the transactional currency. And it started with a proof of concepts around NFT marketplaces, because back then, and I'm saying like a couple of months ago, but there was a trend of like marketplaces adding new chains and definitely creating some kind of user friction, because a user with one wallet and one type of assets, digital assets, being able to view all these different NFTs minted across different chains. And then there was this friction of like, oh, you need to like change the wallet, go to the exchange, get the pair for currency pair to transact with, and get back. So that was the problem we spotted. And another one, as we were thinking about like what comes next with NFTs and digital ownership and experiences, of course, it was the metaverses. So metaverse and the companies that are providing this gamified experience, right? And we realized that the same problem with NFTs and this kind of digital objects, it was even worse, because the user runs into all this experience, is completely logged in, and suddenly, if you want to buy an asset or exchange, or I don't know, even like sign a transaction of like ownership and generate the proof and stuff, you need to log out and you need to go into a DEX and get the funds, and it just ruins the experience, right? So it doesn't really make sense. So we said like, okay, what if we build out a solution, the cross-chain aspect that allows you to, one, abstract the transaction layer from the object management or transfer or whatever layer. And that's how NFT checkout. It has like two names: NFT checkout for specifically marketplaces, and then it has this token agnostic payment for digital objects, which is a kind of a broader use case. Basically, it goes by two names. The first one is NFT checkout, used for the marketplaces, that is the experience of purchasing and transferring NFT with any token to transact with. And another one is like token agnostic payment for like all the use of the metaverse, and going forward, or not only paying just for NFT, but for generating the proof, or for like transacting or sending a message to another chain. So it's it has a kind of a broader usage going forward. And yeah, this product was born out of necessity and need. And we were like, okay, we know how to send and manage the NFT aspect between the chains, but what should we do for transactions, right? And transaction wise, there was two choices. We either go and build out all this liquidity pools and management and all this like crazy stuff on our side, and you just like divide the focus and form a completely new business, or you just leverage something that is trustful and something that provides an instant liquidity across different chains. And you can orchestrate entire like engine with this. And that's how CCTP partnership came into being.
Nice lead in, lesson lead in. And I mean, what you're saying makes a lot of sense. I mean, I couldn't imagine if, let's say, to pay for my Netflix subscription, I had to go buy another token to come back in. You know, it's like if we don't people don't do that in their regular lives. You know, we're never going to expand, you know, our community of users in Web3 if we don't answer these. So what you're describing makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think even like if we a bit like try to imagine the future, and especially with the latest technologies around abstraction and like really providing the users the smoothest flow possible. So you're going to see that not only users will start to like, they should be able to transact in whatever currency they want, but you're going to have like these relayers and the applications who are taking this gas fee cost, but being able to allow user to interact with any ecosystem. And it will be just seamless, but those type of routes that was built through Rarimo technology and CCTP is something that will be required along the way, because it's a friction. Without removing such friction for users or for the kind of abstraction layer, we won't have a network effect. And I'm sure that's what we're striving for, right? From day one.
Absolutely. No, you're 100% right on that. And so, you know, CCTP from like you said, transactional, cross-chain, you know, interoperability is one aspect, but you're also now leveraging this same technology you said beyond that, and one of them was identity. So if you can maybe talk a little bit, maybe some of the example of use cases where you're starting to see that get tested out.
Yeah, I think it's an exciting space, and I think like all of our previous experiments was leading to this scenario and really expanding in this vertical, because identity you can imagine as a kind of different attribute objects attached to a user. And the idea is that like once you have an identity that could be used across the different experiences and ecosystems for verification purposes, for like, I don't know, like matching purposes, for like entering or being allowed listed to a certain application. So there's like tons of use cases from an identity perspective, right? But then there should be the kind of connection between how do you use your identity and how identity becomes the enabler to transactions. So those two things will be connected, because whether it's like DeFi or whether it's like the, I don't know, even a verification checkup or like the entering a certain experience, it is always linked. So it will be your identity and transactions, both linked and interchangeably used within the Web3. And I don't have yet the answer. What is the killer use case, or what is the kind of killer application that people might build with it? But I'm currently, I told you I'm at the hackathon. So one of the teams actually that is building on our technology, they came up with this challenge that they will allow the recovery of a wallet, which is a pure account abstraction technology, and the authorization of transacting across chains with your identity. So there's a kind of smart contract in the form of the wallet and account that basically controls your funds across the chain, and your keys, they are linked to an identity. What does it mean? It's like a amazing small use case, but that's where you use your identity to initiate the certain aspects or recovery of your funds or recovery of your wallet. And I guess it's coming together, but we still need to build. So it's a good start.
Well, that's great, and this is what shows like this are all about. You know, we're reaching out to the builders out there, and you know, anyone listening of these ideas and how they can start to test out maybe integrating your solutions, your NFT solutions, as well as playing around with this identity solution as well. They can definitely learn about it through this show and get involved. So you're in London right now. You said you're at a hackathon. How can builders that are listening start to test these products that these infrastructure tools that you're building?
I think the best place to go is the website, rarimo.com. And then there is a documentation where you can go in depth about not only identity pieces, but as well, there's a kind of sub documents about how can they leverage the CCTP integration for the liquidity purposes. So it all comes in package and into a modular aspects, and developers can just, like I mentioned, with this team building this identity, cross-chain management, transactions, and the wallet recovery in a single piece. So it's amazing. An amazing use case, I guess, and happy to invite all the developers to get the documentation, and we're happy to not only like invite but support all those ideas and builders, and I'm pretty sure the same is on the Circle side, and there's like a mutual effort we can definitely do for those type of builders.
Yeah, and for everyone watching, I've already spoken with Lasha about following up with his team to create another video that will go along with this, where his team could actually walk through how to implement their documentation. So you get a step-by-step guide of how this can all come together. And then on top of that, Lasha, I want to invite you all into our Discord, and we'll do a live workshop. And then that way we can invite everybody in. They could go over, they'll have the video, they can have their questions and go through a live workshop. I think that'd be awesome.
Yeah, happy to participate and definitely give a bit of a more technical deep dive into how could the CCTP module on our side or the identity aspects could be integrated. Because like I forgot to mention, but it's not one thing. So whatever I described in the form of the NFT checkout and those products, these are already production level. So if we had a partnership beside that, I don't know, like how many, like 2-3 months that CCTP came out and we started building, but it's already live in one of the NFT marketplaces. So if you go to, should I mention NF Trade? Yeah, NF Trade. It's a multi-chain.
Is it NF Trade?
NF Trade. Yeah. It's one of the largest multi-chain marketplaces. So they support these different chains. So different NFTs are displayed. And the idea here is that it doesn't matter user wallet or the token they hold, they can transact using any token of choice to buy all those different NFTs minted in different chains. And yeah, the beauty of it is that all this liquidity management, the swapping aspect and rebalancing is something that CCTP provides.
Awesome. CCTP is an open protocol. It doesn't cost you anything to use it. So, listen to the leaders, the OGs in the space, how they're leveraging CCTP and look into it for all those builders out there. Another cool idea for the identity side I was thinking about would be, one-stop KYC, right? It's like, if I'm going through different DeFis, if I've already done my KYC with a trusted provider, that could be something that's on my identity. So wherever I go, they know that I've already been, KYC'd with XYZ company. I'm throwing another idea out there for the builder.
No, you're describing the infrastructure of Rarimo. That's what exactly it allows to do. Yeah. So like just to give you a comparison, like CCTP is doing the cross-chain liquidity management and basically issues, right? The USDC that could be used across the ecosystems and manages this aspect. So imagine we're like an identity layer, but doing that exclusively for identity objects, which could be SBTs, NFTs, the credentials, and making those identity aspects portable for end users. So you just have to authorize once, had an issue a credential, and that could be used across any chain, across different systems.
Awesome. Look, I really appreciate your time. And thank you for joining the show on the road. I know you're at the hackathon. You're working hard. Really appreciate it. We're going to follow up, like I said, with that supplemental video to go with this technical walkthrough. Look for that in the near future. And then also be on the lookout when we invite Rarimo into our Build on Circle Discord to do a live workshop with the community. It's always great talking with you, Lasha. I know you got a lot of work to do, some projects to go out and judge. Thank you for joining the show today. I can't wait to see what's going to be built next on the Rarimo protocol.
Thanks, Sam. Enjoyed it.
Thank you.